Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. We've got a lot to dive into today, but quick reminder, if you haven't done so already, make sure you are subscribing to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. And of course, go find us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. We would like to not remain the best kept secret out there in NBA coverage. So make sure you are subscribing and do us a favor and tell a friend as well. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, joined by Kate Smith at Kate Smith NBA. Keith, the following steadily growing, but I think we could use a little bit more help getting the word out.
Yeah, absolutely. I was hoping we were going to crack 22K subscribers by the end of 2022. We just missed it, but not by too much. So let's push that up. Let's make sure we're nowhere close to 23K by the end of 2023. Let's be way beyond that. So tell a friend. And guys, we see it in the comments all the time. You guys are like, "This is the best kept show on YouTube." Well, as Trevor said, don't keep us the best kept show. Tell everybody, tell people at the grocery store, when you're out, running errands, just start telling people, you should subscribe to Front Office Show on YouTube and you'll get us there. And if they don't do YouTube, tell them about the podcast version because they can find us there as well. Hey, before we get into anything, we are both big sports fans outside of the NBA. Damar, Hamlin, all the best to him. Extremely scary, worrisome, awful situation where he made a tackle and popped up and then went right back down. I don't know all the latest news, so I don't want to say anything that's been rebuffed or anything like that as far as it was inaccurate reporting, but we do know he's in the hospital and all the best to him, and we're hoping for him to recover fully and get back to doing his life the way he wants to do it. It was just a very, very frightening situation last night.
Probably the scariest moment that we've seen in professional sports. The soccer player Erickson, I'm blanking on the guy's first name, Christian Erickson, is a similar situation. But one of the certainly the scariest moments we've seen in sports. Last I saw was he's still in critical condition. The NFL. Rightly, they canceled the game. They put a stop to that. They're not rescheduling it this week or anything like that. I mean, I think so far they've handled it correctly as far as all that goes. You can't ask those players to get back out on the field today or tomorrow or anything like that. There's so many more important things going on, and I think it's a reminder. When you and I have dedicated our lives to this kind of stuff and everything to sports and to sports coverage and all that, and we can get so wrapped up in it and so engrossed in it. In the end of the day, it is a game, right? And this is a stark reminder of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're gonna get in all the latest NBA news and notes around the league here and have a little bit of fun today. But yeah, it is. We just want to start the show wishing all the best to Damar Hamlin and his whole family, and really Bills players, Bengals players, everybody, because it was that was a very tough scene last night.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. One of the great things about sports, obviously, we saw a very negative thing last night, but one of the great things too is we are witness to just awe-inspiring moments that you are blown away by what you're seeing, and Donovan Mitchell provided one of those moments last night. Went for 71 points in an overtime Cavs win, and this was 71 points that were needed, that were necessary in order to win. This wasn't like he was out there chucking just to get stats or anything like that. I don't know if you told me somebody was going to score 71 points. Donovan Mitchell is a talented scorer, but he's probably not the player I would have guessed would get it. But what an incredible night for him and for the Cavs organization and the NBA to have something like that happen. I mean, second most points since Kobe went for 81. This is absolutely incredible what he did last night.
Yeah, it was unreal, and I wasn't fully engaged in what was going on. I was kind of popping around different games. I was obviously keeping an eye on what was happening in the football game as well, and I was. Then people were like, Donovan Mitchell has 40 something points, and that's like kind of 40s when it's like, all right, we might be headed towards a special night. What's crazy is he only had 16 at halftime. So, and it's only 16, right? Like that, we finished with 32 points. If he just doubled it, that's a pretty good night. But this is a, full on thing. Also had 11 assists. I went through the play by play this morning. Those 11 assists led to 28 points. So 99 points created by Donovan Mitchell himself. Those 11 assists, more than double, I believe it was, the next highest points from a player who scored 70 or more in a game. I think 5 was the highest prior to that. So, I mean, he absolutely dominated. 8 rebounds, tied the game on an intentionally missed free throw to even force the overtime. I jokingly said at the beginning of the overtime, well, I hope this gets to double OT because Mitchell might have a shot at 70. You didn't even need it.
And you didn't need it, yeah.
Fresh as a daisy at the end of that game, sprinting by guys, getting out in transition when everybody else, including his own Cavs teammates, and of course all the Bulls players, were just like barely able to walk up and down the floor because they put so much into it. It was just an absolutely incredible night for Donovan Mitchell.
He played 50 minutes on the night.
Yeah.
So he had in an overtime game, he only sat for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That's unreal. I mean, that's incredible.
Yep.
That is absolutely incredible.
It's kind of a win the Cavs needed too, because they've been scuffling a little bit. Kind of not too much their fault that the Nets are playing out of their minds right now and moved past them in the standings, but they slipped a little bit down in the standings, and without Darius Garland didn't play, and Mitchell, it sounds stupid to say stepped up because he stepped up, just really, unreal game out of him. It was funny. I got to thinking it can be very, very hard to win a trade where you gave up a bunch of first round picks and some good, helpful players. It's not saying that the Cavs did the wrong thing, but it's just the volume of stuff that went the other way. It leans more towards the Jazz, or probably when, all is said and told years from now, we'll probably win that trade. I don't know, man. Donovan Mitchell is, pretty special. It's, he is, what a perfect fit he's proven to be there in Cleveland too.
Well, ironic, yesterday we said that we need to put it on our calendar, that we need to schedule a show on a slower news day where we're going to talk about Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, DeJounte Murray, talk about those trades, and then Donovan Mitchell goes for 71. I have a feeling that might, probably not even change our analysis, but enhance it that much more. Hey, the Cavs did better in that trade than I think the Wolves did or the Hawks did in their trades, where they gave up a ton of picks in order to get the other guys.
I feel confident in that as well. Even though it's January 3rd, we still have over half a regular season plus playoffs to play. I feel good about saying that.
Yeah. Yep. You mentioned the Brooklyn Nets. We haven't talked about them much, so let's stop off there in Brooklyn just real quick. They're one game back of your Celtics now in the Eastern Conference. They've won 12 straight. Their point differential is now plus 4.4, which is the third best in the East. They are on an absolute tear. What's going on I mean, Kyrie Irving is getting tip dunks now. What's happening here?
Yeah. I'm going to try to say that it's snarky, but I'm trying to not be super snarky right now. When good to great players actually play, it's shocking what can result in those situations, right? It's, I mean, they've just put all the nonsense behind them. And in addition to that, they've gotten healthy. Ben Simmons looks like an awful lot like Ben Simmons, but in that idealized Ben Simmons role where we were saying for years, Ben Simmons will look best when he doesn't have to score, when he can just defend, rebound, and pass. And you know what the Nets need him to do? Defend, rebound, and pass. It may fully come to light in a playoff series when teams game plan. They can bend their defense a little differently. Then we'll see if his lack of scoring and his willingness to shoot rises. We'll find out. But, for now, it is what it is with that. And then Kyrie's playing great. Kevin Durant, obviously playing at an MVP level. They've got some guys who have kind of popped depth-wise. I feel like even, they're not going to win every game the rest of the way, of course. Even when they have a little mini slide coming, which will come at some point. They'll probably lose 2-3 in a row, and it's just kind of how it goes. But they've got the ability, if they need to next month before the deadline, they've got the ability to make trades to fill any holes they feel like they have. That's a really good basketball team there in Brooklyn. Probably need one more big, I think, just to give Nick Claxton. He has to carry such a heavy load for them up front. But yeah, I mean, they are good.
I think also something we should note here, TJ Warren.
Yeah.
Over 21 minutes in each of his last 6 games, and also in double figures scoring in 5 of his last 6 games. That he's a nice boost for them, right? Coming in, somebody who can get you. You don't have to have somebody who's scoring 25 a night or whatever. When you've got Kevin Durant, when you've got Kyrie Irving, having a guy who can come in and just give you consistent double-digit scoring, that's a big boost coming in
Huge.
for a team like this. That's a
Yep.
big deal because if you do get an off shooting night from KD or an off shooting night from Kyrie or whatever, having a guy who can kind of buffer that a little bit by being able to go out there and get his own as well, that can be a big deal on this kind of team.
Yeah, absolutely. Their bench production was a little spotty.
Mhm.
They weren't getting quite as much. Some of that was injuries. Curry and Harris have both missed times. I think Patty Mills is slipping into he's a deeper option now than an every night guy and those kind of things. Markieff Morris hasn't done much. Edmund Sumner, Yuta Watanabe have been nice stories, but they're not guys who are going to come in on a regular basis and give you points. And yeah, Warren slides right in there, and they can play a lot of different ways because you put him in there with Simmons, Durant, even Royce O'Neal if you wanted to go super kind of big and rangy on the wing, or he can play the 4 in those smaller lineups if they want to do that. So just a perfect fit. And great to see TJ Warren, who missed so much time looking so good and productive. So yeah, it's when you're super top heavy in salary, you've got over 3 guys who make well over 30 million. You got to hit on those minimum signings, and what a it's kind of a shot in the dark. We'll see if this guy can get healthy. Let him play his way into shape 2 months into the season, and here he is playing great.
Yep. Here they are. Here they are. All right. We do have an absolute tidal wave of injuries to get into, but before we let's do one more contractual thing here, and that's the Mavs. We talked about Christian Wood, and off the top of my head, what's he's eligible for, what was it, 4 years, 77
About
million?
70. Yep.
Okay, so he's eligible for that. The Mavs want to go just a 2-year deal with him. I mean, what are your thoughts here on next? Like, he's fit pretty well now that the Mavs had suffered some injuries. He's been moved into the starting lineup. That's mattered. Their spacing has looked better, and Christian Wood is doing good things out there. I mean, should the Mavs mess around with this extension and not want to go 4 years here, or what? What do you think about the Mavs only offering 2 years and less money?
Yeah, it's weird because I don't know that the full 477 is going to be enough for Christian
Right.
Wood. And the reason this is limiting is he can only get 120% of what he makes today. And if he goes into the off season, he can get in theory up to his max number, which won't happen. But instead of bumping him up into the 18 million or so range, he could get up into the range of 24 million if a team really wanted to go there. I covered it all for Spot Track. I laid out all the reasons why. And my thought would be, hey, if the Mavs can get him on that 4-year extension, I would absolutely do it. I just don't know if Christian Wood's feeling that or not. This might be one of those where, hey, let's kind of compromise and meet in the middle and we'll do 2 years. I think the money feels a little light, but the challenge is they can't give him too much more than the 32 over 2 years, just again with where the first year salary needs to start at. So yeah, I'm more and more leaning towards nothing gets done here. They play it out, see how everything goes the rest of the way, and he hits unrestricted free agency. Where again, Dallas would have the leg up because they'd have his bird rights and they could sign him for more than anybody else could.
Right. So maybe nothing does happen here ultimately, but I don't know. I think if you're the Mavs, you want to be careful that you don't put yourself in a situation where
Sure.
you can lose him.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's
Yeah.
been good for them.
I mean, especially after what happened with Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, well,
just
yes.
this past off season where people were like, you didn't extend Brunson. Now that was very different by the time it was clear Brunson was never going to accept the extension for as little as Dallas could give him. But yeah, it got a little messy that way too.
I mean, look, it's a cautionary tale to some degree, right? Like, a bad contract is one of the most damaging things that you can do to a team, particularly if it's an extremely bad contract, right? When you look at multiple years and a lot of money left on a deal, that can really hamper how you build a team. But also extremely damaging is losing a high quality player for nothing. If you're an over the cap team and you don't have a way to replace that player, losing that player can be incredibly damaging as well. So the Mavs, I think they've got to be a little bit careful in this situation.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, you've got to be very cautious. Somebody asked me today, like, why, Dallas has to re-sign him, right? And I was like, well, it becomes kind of that perfect example of the bird rights trap, right? John Hollinger
Yep.
invented that concept, and that's the idea of we have bird rights. So we have to, sorry. All right, they're done. That was an Amazon delivery, in case anyone's wondering. So, our fearsome protectors of a doodle and a golden retriever are letting us know that the Amazon driver's here. But yeah. So back to what I was saying, the bird rights trap for Christian Wood. That's the tricky part where you can't let Wood hold you over a barrel either and say like, hey, you're going to pay me no matter what, or I'm out of here, because that's not necessarily how this is going to work either.
Right. Correct. Okay, let's get into, oh man, all the injuries. Let's start off Zion Williamson, hamstring strain. Certainly not what the Pelicans were hoping to see. Hamstrings in particular can be very tricky. And man, you got to make sure that it's the kind of injury where there's no 95%, let's give it a go tonight. It's got to be 100% because you have that risk of recurrence. I haven't seen anything today on the severity of the strain or anything like that.
There was nothing serious. Sorry to interrupt you on that.
Okay.
It was just Willie Green said we're still gathering information, doing imaging. We'll have an update later today.
So we'll hear something later on exactly how bad it is. Hopefully it's not too bad, because we know Zion's been plagued by injuries historically, and he's been absolutely incredible, and the Pelicans have been playing fantastic basketball. So would hate to see him out for any length of time, but man, hamstring, it's one of those injuries that you just don't want to hear. Like you get a contusion or something, like, okay, right? Like you can get through that, but hamstrings can just be so tricky.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I know we're a broken record with this, but the West is super compact. So you miss a guy for a couple weeks, and now all of a sudden you're hurting. So my guess is this will be let's really take our time. Let's see where this let's get him to where he needs to be, and then we'll kind of go from there. With that. So yeah, he is that important to them. Obviously, is the best player for them. He's a guy who's on the very fringes of the MVP race, but it's he's been unreal. So it's very important that they get him healthy.
Yeah, I mean, look at what's going on with Phoenix. They're starting to sink a little bit in the West. Again, they lose Devin Booker. It's a very compact conference. The next thing you know, you can drop pretty quickly.
Yep, absolutely.
Russell Westbrook exited last night's Lakers game against the Hornets with foot soreness. Exited at halftime. Was not having a good game, and I don't know if perhaps that was foot related.
He didn't look right in the parts I
didn't.
saw. Like he looked like something was off. Like he just didn't look comfortable, I guess, from the point when he got in the game.
No, he was settling for a lot of shots, a lot of deep shots, and just turning the ball over. And I mean, it was not good. So exited with foot soreness. We don't have an update as of right now of what exactly is going on or how long this will keep him sidelined, if at all. It's something he's been battling over the course of the season. But as of right now, nothing official on that. Just he had to be removed from the game at halftime, and we'll find out more at a later date.
And this is interesting to me. This is something where we got to take all these things with a pretty big grain of salt. But he was at a couple different places. He's the betting favorite to win Sixth Man of the Year right now. Which there's some Lakersness priced into that. Obviously, there's also name recognition. People know him. It's been a big story that he did go to the bench. But I thought that was a little interesting, and it wouldn't be like completely unreasonable. He has played quite well.
Yeah.
For the Lakers off the bench. So it's just another one of those things where you can't. I don't know how much you want to be relying on those kind of games out of LeBron to keep you afloat here without a whole lot of help. As much as people bang on Russ, he's still been a positive player, I think, more often than not.
And that's, LeBron goes for 43 last night, goes for 48 on his birthday, or was 47 on his birthday, but turned 38, went for 47. But I mean, how much, like, a lot of Lakers fans are looking at that and saying, this is LeBron saying to the front office, I can still get it done. I can still do this. Do something. Like get something done. Don't just throw your hands up and say, well, let's wait till the summer.
Sure.
I think there's any of that going on here.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I mean, they're 2 games out of the play-in spot, so it could be hey, get us in the play-in. I mean, we've talked about it before. Even if they could win their way through into the 7th or 8th seed somehow, like no one's going to want to play. You look across the floor on game 1 of a first round series and be like, here, oh look, LeBron, who can win games almost by himself, and maybe a healthy or healthy-ish AD, and where does it go? Any of the top teams should still beat the Lakers in that situation, but it's not going to be as easy as it normally would be, right? It's not going to be as easy as like, hey, we could roll over a team that's just not very good. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. And again, no reason to tank. Like they don't have control of the pick. So I don't know. Part of me is just, this is LeBron. This is what he does, right? When he goes out there, he's trying to win games. He's trying to compete. So I don't know. I tend to think we look a lot. And this is not a Lakers related thing, I promise, because this was going on always with the Cavs and the Heat. It's like, is LeBron sending a message? Like sometimes I think he's just playing basketball.
Right. We read between the lines a lot with LeBron, though he's also known to do stuff like that. So that's part of why.
Even when he does want to send a message, he kind of does it, right? Like it's so like the other day we already talked about it, where he said like, hey, I want to play. Like I'm not, I want to win. I'm not just playing to play. So I don't know.
All right, let's move to Miami. Jimmy Butler, still not fully healthy, only had 9 points in the Heat's win over the Clippers, shot 2 for 8. That's not typical of him. Miami certainly needs to get him back to 100%, but if you're picking up wins over a team like the Clippers, like that's pretty solid. Miami hasn't been as good as they were expected to be coming into the season, but they've won 4 of their last 5. Like that's pretty good there if you're Miami. And that's even with an ailing Jimmy Butler for part of that.
Yeah, and they're right on the edges of getting into that assured playoff spot. I think, barring some major slip in the standings, I think we're in some order. Our top 5 are going to be Boston, Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Cleveland, and Philly. That's the order today. I think that'll hold, but can Miami pass Indiana to get to 6? Yeah, without a doubt. I don't think should be a whole lot of question about that. I think, Indiana's had a great season and kudos to them, but I do think, it would not be a shock if Miami got there. And that was kind of the range, at least I know I had them in preseason, is, that 6-7 range, and down in that level. I thought the Hawks would be better than what they've been thus far. But yeah, it's one of those things where the Heat, though, the margin for error is not very big. They don't have a very good roster beyond their top 5-6 guys. It's a lot of question marks after that. So then it just gets a little messy. They've got guys who can play, but just haven't fully popped the way you would hope. So yeah, you gotta get these guys on the floor and keep them on the floor.
All right. Another hamstring injury coming up. I told you guys this is the injury show here. Colin Sexton out for a week, dealing with a hamstring issue, and Utah is they've been sliding a bit here.
Yeah.
In fact, they're in 10th right now in the West. They've fallen below 500 now. They've lost their last 4, 19 and 20 now on the season. Does this alter their plans here on the trade market? Does this give them pause in terms of going all in? I still think they've won too many games to really be in the tank race like we expected them to be at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I think what this changes is, hey, we don't need to trade everybody and bottom all the way out. But the further they fall away from being a top 6, then it becomes, all right, is it really best for us to get into this, race for the play-in, or should we, just even if it's not a top 3 shot at Victor Wembanyama, maybe we should bottom into, it's not out of range if we got lucky that we could pop in there. I think that's more likely to be where it is, hey, a couple of these guys. But I think, there were all these thoughts of, well, could they reflip Lauri Markkanen and stuff like that? I think that's probably a no now. I think that's a let's keep him. But guys like Malik Beasley, maybe still Mike Conley, Rudy Gay, guys like that, I think they could still say, yeah, let's move. Kelly Olynyk, I think, is another one they could look at moving down the line. But yeah, for now, it's just rough patch. Yeah, I think it probably changes things just slightly, just enough to reprioritize maybe the rest of the season.
I mean, this could, and maybe this is a bit of a stretch, but this could wind up being the perfect scenario for Utah, where You show out for part of the season. You show that you've got something here. You keep fans invested in this team. And then if you do fall enough, like, I mean, looking at the odds here of getting the number one overall pick, like if you dropped where you have the ninth worst record in the NBA, well, you have a 6% chance of getting the number one pick. You have a 14% chance if you are a bottom three team. So it's not that that's
yeah, it's
you
not
obviously
crazy.
right. That's not like prohibitive, right? It's not like if you fall to that spot, you're not getting the number one pick. Like you still have a decent shot at now. If you're like the 14th seed, you have 0.5% chance, right? Of the 14th
Yeah, that gets
in
a
the standings. So
little
then you're getting
yeah.
like, okay, it's definitely not happening. But like you could have the first half of your season be really good, keep fans engaged, show that you've got something to build around, and then still wind up with the number one overall pick. That's not
Yeah.
out of the question here for Utah.
No, it is, and I think that probably the main thing is like, hey, let's try to stay ahead of Minnesota and keep their pick down there too,
Sure.
just so they're bad. I mean, if they're going to get past, I think they'd be like, we don't mind if it's the Lakers pass us because that's not going to, and also that weakens the pick for another conference rival in New Orleans, and let's push us and the Timberwolves down. I think for the Jazz, it's like a lot of these teams. It's going to be the next 2-3 weeks big of all right, where are we at in 2 or 3 weeks? Are we all right? We turn this around now. We're pushing back towards the top 6. Then we're gonna run with what we got. Maybe we'll even look to add guys. If it's we've continued this slide a little bit. Now we're closer to being completely out of it. Then maybe you look at all right. But I think now a couple of these guys are like, these are our guys going forward. Like we're going to not necessarily build the entire team around Lauri Markkanen, but he's going to be a big part of what we do here. Colin Sexton could be a big part of what we do moving forward. And then where we're going to build around that.
Right. Exactly. If you're the Jazz and you decide that you're going to just focus on the future, who are you moving? Like who are you keeping and who are you moving?
Well, I keep Markkanen. I keep Sexton. Sure. I would keep Jared Vanderbilt. You keep a guy like Walker Kessler, they just drafted. I'd see what can we get for Malik Beasley? What can we get for Mike Conley? The reports are they may still be more likely to sign Jordan Clarkson to an extension than they are to trade him. But I would also look and say, hey, what could we get for Jordan Clarkson if we wanted to make a move there? Like I think there's a lot of different things you could do with that. Olynyk, of course, I would move on from him on the roster. But I think you've got a few guys that I would definitely say these are our guys going forward. We can build them plus whatever we get back in the trades. Let's go with that. And that's where it gets kind of fun if you're a Jazz fan, because you've got a lot of different ways this could play out over the next month or so before the deadline.
All right, Marvin Bagley is out for some time here with a hand injury. Not good here for Marvin Bagley and the Detroit Pistons. Also, not a ton of details on exactly what's going on here just yet.
Yeah, I just say that he's going to miss extended time is, I believe, what the reporting was from Woj, and I think we're in a spot when we really kind of look at this with the Pistons more than Bagley himself. It's just further lost time to see. All right, what are we doing? They'd kind of settled into a 3 big rotation with Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, and Marvin Bagley. And I was like, these are our 3 bigs. This is how we're going to play. We're going to play these 3 guys. We're going to play a bunch of wings. And now Cunningham's out for the season. Bagley's out. It just starts to become one of those things of, all right, it was already a lost season standings wise. They weren't going to climb up the standings at all. But now it turns into, or we're not even getting to see how these guys fit together. And that's tough, because it's, if you're going to stink, at least you want to stink with your guys, getting experience and getting some data on how they fit.
Right, exactly. And unfortunately, you won't be able to get that, and that's going to be unfortunate for the Pistons. It makes the rebuild that much more difficult. Yeah. Kelly Oubre, well, we should have mentioned him. We were talking about the Jazz. Out 4 to 6 weeks.
He's on the Hornets now.
Hornets.
That's fair. It's fine. He's played for everybody. So.
You know what? My brain, I went Kelly O and I went Kelly Olynyk.
Olynyk. That's funny.
Oh, that's where we're at right now.
How
Kelly
many
Oubre
times
out
do you
4 to
think
6
Kelly
weeks.
Oubre and Kelly Olynyk have been mistaken for each other in their lives?
Probably. They they look identical. I don't know what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
true. Yeah, yeah, very similar. The hair is what gets me.
It's the hair. 4 to 6 weeks, left-hand surgery. So Oubre, obviously, with the Charlotte Hornets. What does this mean? I mean, the Hornets, I keep looking at them and thinking this is a team that's got to be thrown in the towel pretty soon here and looking to just, tank and bottom this thing out. Does this push them further, or are they already kind of teetering on that edge anyway? Or what does this mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're already there. They're still playing their veteran guys, trying to win games and those kind of things. And I kind of get it to some extent, but it's like, well, what are we doing here? I think what this hurts most is now they can't trade Kelly Oubre most likely, unless the team is like, all right, we've seen what it is. We feel really good that by what 6 weeks would take us to the end of February almost. So unless you're really looking at it and saying, yeah, as long as we can get him in the lineup by the beginning of March, like, all right, we feel good that we can fit Kelly Oubre in. That's going to be tough to get a trade because no one will see him play again until the trade deadline. So that makes it a little tricky there. But yeah, the rest of that roster, I mean, it's they're just not good, and the roster isn't good either. So I put on Twitter this morning, Mark Williams is really starting to show some stuff. Their first round pick, I'd probably start giving him more. For me, Mason Plumlee playing twice as many minutes as Mark Williams is silly. Now I fully got the early in the year, and you're trying to make sure Williams got built up. But yeah, it's pretty messy.
Yeah, definitely. All right, last one that we've got here. Sasha Vezenkov extends in Greece. Keith, why is this a big deal?
Yeah, so why this is kind of an interesting one is he's draft rights are owned by the Sacramento Kings. The Kings carved out a portion of their mid-level exception this past offseason. Remember, I know you know it. They signed Malik Monk using most of that mid-level exception, but they carved out enough of it to be able to give Vezenkov a multi-year deal. So remember, if you're signing a player to a minimum contract, using the minimum exception can only be a 2-year deal. If you use part of the non-taxpayer, you can give them up to a 4-year deal. So that's what they were hoping to do. Ultimately didn't come together. He decided to stay over in Greece. Now he's played great. He has really, really put in a lot of work. The really thing that gets me most excited, whenever you see a player's volume of shots go up, both 2s and 3s, and their efficiency goes up, they're making more of them. That should really kind of raise your eyebrows and you feel good about that. So in this case with Vezenkov, he's played better. He's really, starting to look pretty good. So here we are where the unfortunate thing is because he's played so well, Olympiakos added a couple years to his deal over in Greece. Still has an NBA out. It's believed to be between 1 and 1.5 million. Not ridiculous. Sometimes we hear these NBA outs are 3 and 4 million, which can often be the entirety of the player's contract. The team is only allowed to pay so much of that out. Right now, it's about $825,000. So that goes up each year. So if that gets up to $850,000, $900,000, then that's enough where the Kings can pay that, and off Vezenkov may come. So it doesn't rule anything out, doesn't change anything, but kind of a little interesting roster note. And this is sometimes why these draft rates guys matter more than just some dude who was picked in the second round that you're never going to see.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. That's why these things can certainly matter. While you're explaining that, the NBA just announced Luka Doncic and then you've got Joel Embiid as players of the week.
Yeah, I don't want to. I know we're not getting full into a whole discussion on this because they're at the end of the show. What a deep MVP race, right? It's unbelievable. It really is. With this, these are the other nominees because I'm looking at it right now: Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Lauri Markkanen, John Morant, Domantas Sabonis, Zion Williamson. That's just the West. In the East, Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, Donovan Mitchell, Pascal Siakam, Franz Wagner. That's player of the month. All those guys on the list. Rookie of the month, they were Paolo Banchero and Keegan Murray of the Kings. And Keegan Murray's starting to figure things out a little bit. So, yeah, the league is insanely deep. And
Yeah, I mean, absolutely
I,
incredible. And we talk about can Doncic win MVP? Well, the Mavs are doing what he needs them to do in order to win it. They've won 7 in a row. They moved up to fourth in the West. You kind of need to be in the top part of your conference in order to get consideration. So, like you said, it feels like the MVP race is just getting deeper as the season goes on, which is great. It means we're seeing some incredible performances.
I want to say somebody on Twitter told me this. I have not checked this, so this may be off. We've had 11 straight days where someone scored 45 or 40 or more
Yeah.
points in a game. Yeah, we're up to they're going to shatter the number of 40-point games. And people were asking like, what's causing that? And they're like, is it the take fouls being eliminated? That it isn't. That's added some, but it's and then it's because they let them travel, they don't call stuff. Guys go to the free throw line. It's none of that. Guys are just better now than they've ever been before. And I've seen some people say they don't really play defense. That's not true either. Teams are still defending. Players are they're more talented than they've ever been. And it's not surprising, right? They have more data available to them. They practice better. They have more things to work on their game than they've ever had in the history of sports. It's just, we're at a peak level of ability right now.
Well, go back and watch a game in like 1998, and you've got 5 players in the paint defensively, right? Like, and then offensively, there's maybe 1 player behind the 3-point line, right? Or if anybody is out there, nobody really cares that much if they're out there. Today, trying to defend in today's league is so much more difficult, and there's just more movement, more energy required on the defensive end of the floor. I mean, heck, even go back to say, I don't know, like 2003, 2002, go back to one of those years. Think about, post players back then are so much more dominant. Of course, we think about Shaq. And yeah, but that was also in an NBA where your whole offense could be pass to a wing entry pass into the post, and then off they go from there. 3 players on the other side of the floor are just standing kind of not engaged in the play at all. And that's the entire possession. Now there's so much movement on every single play. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would assume that if you go back and you look at the distance traveled in a game back then compared to now, it's gone up significantly, I would assume.
Absolutely, yeah.
Defending, it's not that there's no defense now. It's that there's so much more ground to cover and so much more space on the floor because of the shooting and all of those things.
As you and I were kind of our formative years pretty much overlapped in a lot of this stuff. It was a huge deal, Reggie Miller running through screens and all this stuff that the Pacers did to get Reggie Miller open and all these crazy amount of screens they'd set for him and stuff. Now it's just everybody, right? Everybody does that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's very different. And I'm not saying it was bad because it's just different. That's all it is. It's just different. It was, I mean, for my money, a lot of the guys who played before, just like there's a lot of guys now, the best players in any era are going to dominate no matter what era you drop them into. They're the best players for a reason. You put Shaq back in the 60s, Shaq was going to be great. You put, Bill Russell into today's game, he's going to be dominant. Like these guys are just going to be great no matter what. Like it's not a case of, this guy couldn't hang in this era. And, today's players are too soft. Because they'd all figure out different stuff. It's just, now I think what it is we have data that tells these guys take these shots and not these shots. So those are the shots they practice. And, you watch these games, players don't do a long shooting routine that involves shooting from 50 spots on the floor. It's, I get my shots where I take my shots from. Those are the ones I practice, and then I don't really take other shots unless it's absolutely necessary. So it's just very, very different now, and not different isn't always worse. It's not always better. It's just different.
Yeah, exactly, and then that's the game has changed and evolved, and that's meant it's harder to compare apples to apples when you're comparing 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, whatever, 2 players today. You're not. I mean, just even the eye test. Go back and watch one of those games. It feels like you're watching a different sport sometimes.
Mike Prada, I think he wrote a whole book on this, but he used to tweet out. He'd be like screenshots of games from like the 80s and 90s, and it really is. It's 9 players standing in inside the not even the arc, like you said, inside the paint. And like 5 of them are on one side of the floor. Like, it's almost remarkable that anybody scored back then when you kind of watch. It's like, man, how did you get baskets. You know, how did Michael Jordan get to the rim like the way he did? Well, because he was Michael Jordan. He was unbelievable. Like that's how, you know. So yeah, it's just it is. But this is part of why too. I'm so glad like we do what we do right now because it's like every night turn on these games and it's
something
like
crazy is
seeing
happening.
something amazing that you've almost never seen before.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Good time to be a basketball fan. That is for sure. All right, let's wrap things up there. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Again, make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel as well as the podcast version over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Until next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.